trade talks, and that of course is the big story that we will also bring for you. Piyush Goyal has met with leadership in EU to go ahead and stitch those final contours of the India-EU FTA. And of course, this is IPO season. About half a dozen companies are due to launch their IPOs and eventually get listed in the next few weeks. We'll try and get you an expert opinion on which are the ones that you should participate in. This is Morning Brief at 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. First up, all the headlines that we're tracking for you this Tuesday morning.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा के संग त्योहार की उमंग.
Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal begins his Brussels visit to push India-EU free trade pact talks, aims for swift and balanced agreement by December. India may allow up to 49% foreign direct investment in state-run banks to attract global capital and align with private sector norms. In a big development, Madras High Court rules cryptocurrency qualifies as property under Indian law, marking a major step in defining digital asset rights and their ownership. 6 IPOs worth more than 1,800 crore rupees are due to hit Indian markets this week, led by Lenskart and Orkla India's mainboard offerings. Gold prices have dropped 700 rupees to now just a little under 1,26,000 rupees per 10 grams as easing U.S China trade tensions curb the safe haven demand. China calls on global leaders to defend open trade and deepen economic ties. A pointed message to United States as President Donald Trump's tariff regime looms over U.S China talks in South Korea later this week. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney confirms plans to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping amid fresh U.S. tariffs and the collapse of Trump-led trade talks with Canada, adding strain to Ottawa-Washington ties. In the second leg of his Asia tour, U.S. President Donald Trump and Japan's new Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi ink an agreement to secure rare earth supplies as White House confirms Tokyo will nominate Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. And tech giants Meta and TikTok vow compliance with Australia's under-16 social media ban, forcing removal of underage users starting December 10th, a landmark move amid growing security of online child safety.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा के संग त्योहार की उमंग.
The top story we're tracking for you, Union Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has kicked off his visit to Brussels with a meeting with Germany's Federal Minister for Foreign Affairs, Johann Wadephul, to push forward discussions on the long-pending India-EU free trade agreement. Now, taking to social media, Goyal said their talks spanned key areas of mutual interest and growth, reaffirming what he called the India-Germany strategic partnership and both nations' shared commitment to an early conclusion of the India-EU free trade agreement. The minister's two-day visit to Brussels from October 27th to today, October 28th, is being seen as a crucial step in giving political and strategic direction to the ongoing negotiations. His trip comes soon after the 14th round of FTA talks held earlier this month, where both sides reportedly made notable progress. On Monday, Goyal met with EU Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, Maros Sefcovic, reviving the status of the trade pact. Now, the Commerce Minister said the discussions were focused on accelerating the negotiations to reach a swift, balanced and mutually beneficial agreement. Now, remember, the European Union is India's largest trading partner for goods, with bilateral trade touching as much as $136 billion in the year 2024-25. The EU also accounts for about 17% of India's total exports, while its exports to India make up about 9% of the bloc's total shipments. But the EU continues to seek steep duty cuts on items like automobiles, medical devices, wine and spirits, while India is pushing for greater market access for its textiles, leather and agricultural products. Now remember, just a few weeks ago at the Newsline Global Summit held in Stuttgart, Germany earlier this month, Germany's Federal Minister for Foreign Affairs, Johann Wadephul, highlighted India's vast potential for German businesses, citing its strong latent pool and fast-growing economy. He further said Germany's innovation has long supported India's progress in sectors like renewable energy and infrastructure. Johann Wadephul is the person that Piyush Goyal did meet yesterday in progressing the India-EU free trade talks. Let's listen in to Johann Wadephul's excerpt from his address to the Newsline Global Summit.
India offers German companies unparalleled opportunities for growth thanks to its vast talent pool and a rapidly growing economy. Meanwhile, Germany's technology and innovation have supported India in areas ranging from renewable energy to infrastructure development. Today, our economic ties are stronger than ever. Germany has become India's largest trading partner in the European Union, and India is Germany's most important partner in South Asia. German-Indian trade volume was already 31 billion euro last year. Why don't we jointly create the conditions to double that? The upcoming free trade agreement between the EU and India will further boost our economic relations. However, our relationship is not just about beneficial impact on our economies. It is also based on a shared commitment to democracy, human rights, and sustainability. This is why we are working together in multilateral fora to address global challenges. And this is also why we are considerably expanding our areas of cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have already achieved a great deal together. Nonetheless, we are facing a multitude of geopolitical challenges. In times of regional conflicts, shifting power balances, global supply chain disruptions, and a rapid digital transformation, it is more important than ever to maintain and enhance stable and reliable partnerships. Not only in one's own neighborhood, but more than ever, partners across continents.
And also speaking at the Newsline Global Summit in Stuttgart, just a few days ahead of Minister Piyush Goyal's visit to the European Union's negotiation table in Brussels was EU Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic, and he said that these negotiations with India on the FTA are nearing completion, with both sides targeting a year-end deadline. He said the deal aims to deliver real economic value for businesses and consumers in both the regions. Listen in to that exclusive address by Maros Sefcovic at the Newsline Global Summit on October 9th.
We are seeing growing uncertainty and unpredictability across the globe. At a time like this, it is vital that we work with like-minded partners to safeguard our prosperity and boost our resilience. Which is why Europe has set out a new agenda to deepen and broaden bilateral relations with India, a key strategic partner and a true engine of the global economy. Trade is vital to this effort and a cornerstone of our economic relationship. Over the past decade, trade between our economies has soared by 90%. In 2024, we traded goods worth some 120 billion euro, making the EU India's largest trading partner ahead of the US and China. Some 2 million people are employed directly by more than 6,000 European companies active in India, which support a further 6 million jobs indirectly. An EU investment in India has almost doubled in just 5 years to 140 billion euros. Yet, we can go further. And I have been in intensive discussions with my Indian counterpart, Minister Piyush Goyal, on a groundbreaking free trade agreement. We are now maximizing our efforts to finalize negotiations by the end of the year.
So finalizing the agreement and putting that pedal on the metal on the pedal by end of this year is when the FTA between India and EU could finally be seen. Well, moving on now, India could soon open the doors wider for foreign investment in its public sector banks. According to Reuters report, the government is considering allowing FTI of up to 49% in state-run banks, more than double the current limit of just 20%. The Finance Ministry is said to be in talks with the Reserve Bank of India over this proposal, though a final decision hasn't yet been made. The move, if approved, would bring public sector banks closer to their private counterparts, where foreign ownership of up to 74% is already permitted. This policy shift comes amid a surge of foreign interest in India's banking sector. Recent big-ticket deals include the Dubai-based Emirates NBD's $3 billion purchase of a 60% stake in RBL Bank and Japan's Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation investing $1.6 billion for a 20% stake in Yes Bank, which it later increased to nearly 25%. Allowing higher foreign investment in state-run banks could give these lenders greater access to capital, especially as they continue to modernize and strengthen their balance sheets. And from one currency to another, and perhaps not a currency, yet in a major development, the Madras High Court has ruled that cryptocurrency qualifies as property under Indian law. This is a move that could redefine how digital assets are treated in the country's legal as well as financial system. Now, this ruling was delivered by Justice N. Anand Venkatesh, who stated that cryptocurrencies, though not tangible or recognized as legal tender or legal currency, are still assets capable of ownership and being held in trust. The court's reasoning was supported by earlier Supreme Court judgments, which had expanded the definition of property to include all valuable rights and interests with exchangeable value. Now, these precedents helped establish that digital assets like cryptocurrencies can fall within the broader meaning of property. Now, the case arose from a petition filed by an investor seeking the release of 3,532 XRP tokens frozen on the WazirX platform following a 2024 cyber attack. The High Court recognized the investor's holding as her property and directed that they not be interfered with until arbitration proceedings conclude. Legal experts say the ruling provisions long-awaited clarity on the status of cryptocurrencies in India. It could have wide-ranging implications for taxation, inheritance, insolvency, and contract enforcement involving digital assets. And in the world of commodities, gold prices slipped sharply in the national capital on Monday, falling by 700 rupees to just a little under 1,26,000 rupees per 10 grams as easing U.S. China trade tensions weakened the global demand for safe haven assets. According to the All India Sarafa Association, gold of 99.5% purity also declined by 700 rupees to about 1,25,300 rupees per 10 grams, tracking similar weakness in international markets. The yellow metal had earlier gained 1,000 rupees on Saturday amid global uncertainty. Analysts say the recent progress in U.S. China trade talks has lifted risk sentiment, prompting investors to move away from gold and other safe haven assets. In the local bullion market, silver witnessed an even steeper fall, plunging 4,250 rupees to now just a little over 1,51,000 rupees per kilogram, reversing most of its weekend gains. On to some global stories now. China urged world leaders to uphold open trade and deepen economic ties at the ASEAN summit in Malaysia on Monday. Beijing renewed its call to reject protectionism, a message often aimed at U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs as both sides prepare for the high-stakes talks in South Korea later this week. More details in this report.
China pressed for open trade and stronger economic ties at a regional summit in Malaysia on Monday. Premier Li Qiang called on leaders to uphold free trade and oppose protectionism, a phrase China has used to call out tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. This comes a day after U.S. officials said that negotiators from the world's top two economies hashed out a framework for a deal to pause steeper American tariffs and Chinese rare earths export controls. Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are expected to meet later this week in South Korea. Trump dove into a flurry of deal-making activity at the Association of Southeast Asian Nations gathering in Kuala Lumpur. He oversaw the signing of an expanded ceasefire he brokered between Cambodia and Thailand. Trump also established trade framework agreements with 4 countries, none of which reduced import tariffs, though they left room for exemptions. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney on Monday said his government was working to secure trade deals as well. He said he was also open to meeting Trump, who has been incensed over a tariff-related political ad that has complicated their delicate trade negotiations.
We are ready to have discussions when the Americans wish to have those discussions. But we're not, obviously we don't dictate the timing of that.
Trump said he was in no hurry to meet with Carney.
I don't want to meet with him. No, I'm not going to be meeting with him for a while. No, I'm very happy with the deal we have right now with Canada. We're going to let it ride.
In contrast, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva struck a positive tone on Monday about his country's tariff tensions with the United States. He said his meeting with Trump a day earlier guaranteed a more favorable trade deal than the current 50% tariff on Brazilian goods.
And talking about trade deals, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who's currently on a 3-nation Asia visit, said he will meet Chinese President Xi Jinping later this week in South Korea. His announcement comes amid renewed tensions with U.S. President Donald Trump, who recently cut off trade talks with Canada and slapped fresh additional 10% tariffs on the country.
I do expect to, there are plans for me and President Xi to meet. We will pick up on the discussions I had with Premier Lee in New York a few weeks ago. A broad range of issues, both in terms of the commercial relationship, as well as the evolution of the global system. So I look forward to the meeting with the President.
And now in the second leg of his Asia tour, U.S. President Donald Trump has met Japan's newly sworn-in Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi in Tokyo on Tuesday, a week after the hardline conservative became Japan's first female leader and vowed to accelerate a military build-up. Donald Trump hailed America's alliance with Japan, reaffirming ties with a long-standing partner in Asia. He praised Prime Minister Takaichi on her plans to ratchet up defense spending. Trump also offered optimism that the two sides had overcome their trade disputes. According to the White House, the two sides signed an agreement on Tuesday for securing supplies of critical minerals and rare earths. The meeting is a high-stakes test for Takaichi, whose Liberal Democratic Party is recovering from a slush fund scandal that prompted her resignation, in fact, of 2 previous prime ministers. She's navigating implementation of a U.S. trade deal brokered under her predecessor that includes a massive pledge for Japan to fund $550 billion in U.S. projects.
On behalf of our country, I want to just let you know, anytime you have any question, any doubt, anything you want, any favors you need, anything I can do to help Japan, we will be there. We are an ally at the strongest level.
Staying with U.S. President Donald Trump, he has once again hinted that he would want to stay in power beyond the constitutionally allowed 2 terms as president. Now, while the remarks may sound playful, some of his allies have reportedly taken them seriously, exploring potential legal or political loopholes to make it possible, an idea that constitutional experts dismiss outright. Now, under the U.S. Constitution's 22nd Amendment, no one can be elected president more than twice, but Donald Trump there hinting that he is not open and stressing on the word not to be considered as a vice president in the next term.
Do I believe that? I would love to do it. I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. If you read it, am I not ruling it out? I mean, you'll have to tell me. All I can tell you is that we have a great group of people, which they don't.
And with that, we will slip into a short break. But coming up on the other side, Amrish Baliga will be here and we will try and pick his brains on what your strategy should be in this IPO season. Remember, half a dozen, as many as 6 IPOs are slated to open this week. That and more action from the Lal Street on the other side of the break. You're watching News 9.
खेलता है झूलता उछलता है दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया।
जी, आपने भारत कनेक्ट का नाम सुना है?
शादी वादी करावे क्या?
शादी नहीं, वो 5 लाख एजेंट्स की मदद से बिल पेमेंट्स पॉसिबल बनाते हैं।
ओ,
जैसे अभी किया।
ओ, शाबाश।
आप हमें जानते नहीं पर मानते जरूर हैं। हम हैं भारत कनेक्ट।
Bala sees his bike.
Seizing my bike for speed under which rule?
No, not any rule. It's perfectly working.
It's pretty obvious, sir. I take good care.
What type of care?
Do timely oil checks and use only Vidol.
Engine oil.
Yes. Okay, sir. I'll take your leave.
Okay. First, deliver our order.
But here it's written Saurav Ganguly. Oh wow, sir. Sir.
Saurav Ganguly and hordes of riders have tested and trusted Vidol engine oil. It actually keeps the engine clean from deep within.
That goat is long dead, but Cyrus Bhai are still alive. Game show. This is God's office calling. You're not a VIP, so God won't speak directly, but here's the deal. You have been granted a second chance with a brand new news show.
Thank you very much. Just one thing. You said 2 lives, 2 more lives. So I'll first be a newsman who wins awards, and second I'll be
Cockroach.
better make this show last. No hurry to, be a cockroach. Let's stay here for a little while. Don't want to be a cockroach. Apparently, they have lots of issues, like being stamped upon. Which is the same thing as a newsman. I mean, they're not that different.
Back, you're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9, and let's move on now to Dalal Street. Markets opened just a few minutes back and absolutely flat. There is absolutely no momentum visible in the markets. A little in the green, a little in the red, pretty much doing that seesaw move ahead of today being Tuesday, the weekly contracts expiry. So no real sentiment visible on the benchmark indices, Sensex and Nifty. But in better news, of course, you have those levels of almost 26,000 on the Nifty 50 still holding. Sensex hopefully in that 84,700, 800 odd mark. We don't know which direction the market is going to take. Let's pull up the Nifty 50 heat map and see if there's any movement that we can see on the charts. And it doesn't seem like a very happening day as far as action on the Nifty 50 is concerned. Reliance is absolutely flat. ONGC a little bit in the red, down about 0.15%. Even the IT sector is more or less flat with a little bit of gain in HCL Tech, a slight decline in Wipro, and the banking sector also pretty much mixed, but very few levels. ICICI Bank is down almost 1% or so. We'll try and see if there's a news trigger there. Meanwhile, no real action visible on any of the sectors or any of the stocks per se. But something big is happening this week, and it seems to be that the IPO season is back, and we have about half a dozen IPOs to be launched this week with eventual listing in weeks to come. We will get Amrish Baliga's view on what your IPO strategy should be. But before that, Amrish Baliga, thank you so much for joining us. Any mood check on the market today? What are you making of the numbers and the levels, given that it's Tuesday and it's the weekly expiry day?
In fact, the earnings have been better than what people had expected.
Okay.
And thankfully, because the expectations were low after the sort of earnings which we have seen in the last couple of quarters. But then whatever has come till date, most of them have been better. So I think that's also helping the markets stay up.
Okay.
And again, there's an expectation of a trade deal sooner than later, possibly by end of November. I think that would be the next big trigger.
Right.
We are seeing that the markets are getting stuck at these levels of about 26,000. Once it crosses this, it's possible that we could see a new high. But whether we sustain at those levels or not will depend on the trade deal.
All right. And a lot of analysts there, Mr. Baliga, expecting that the trade deal will push up markets back to beyond their lifetime highs, maybe by end of this year if the deal does get announced by mid to end November. That seems to be the estimate. But in case there is no deal and in case the status quo on tariffs were to remain the status quo, what is the downside that you're expecting?
No, in case it remains status quo, yes, it will be a disappointment, and markets can possibly come back to those levels of 24,500, 25,000 on the Nifty.
Okay.
But then whatever rumors are coming, or whatever has been happening in the recent past clearly shows that the trade deal should happen.
Right.
Because you see, there were two major issues. One was the Russian oil import,
Right.
and the second was the U.S. agri exports from U.S.
Right.
So I think both of them are getting sorted out. Russian oil imports will reduce from November end.
Right.
And as far as agri exports from U.S. are concerned, I think we are more or less finalizing on maize or corn imports
Yes.
for ethanol. So with both these major issues getting sorted out, I don't think there should be much of a roadblock as far as the trade deal is concerned.
Right. And also sticking to other news from the US, the FOMC kicks off today and a rate decision likely to be announced in 2 days or so. Do you think it is likely to have an impact on the sentiment or at least on the flow of capital into or away from Indian markets? Let's say the Federal Reserve keeps status quo on rates because inflation data has been fairly promising.
Yeah, I mean, if it keeps status quo, I don't think there'll be too much of a difference as such. But
Okay.
in there's a rate cut, we can expect some sort of flows going ahead.
Right.
But for that, we need to. The way I see it is the flows should increase possibly post the Q3 numbers. I'm talking of the December numbers.
All right.
Because that's when I think we should see a major uptick.
All right. And in case there is a rate cut, it's likely to augur well for IT stocks, which have had a pretty lousy year so far.
Absolutely. I think there should be some trigger for the IT stocks. But then I think it is still some time away before we see a consistent sort of a rally in IT. I think we may need to wait for a quarter or two more.
All right. Stay with us, Mr. Baliga. We'd love to pick your brains on this IPO season as well, because India's primary market is buzzing again with as many as 6 IPOs hitting the street this week. Now, together, these public issues aim to raise more than 1,800 crore rupees across mainboard and SME platforms. From eyewear and helmets to logistics, textiles, investors have a fairly wide range of options to choose from. So let's take them one by one with Mr. Baliga. Mr. Baliga, first up, Lenskart, now the much-awaited eyewear retailer opens its 2,150 crore rupee IPO on October 31st, closing on November 4th. Now, we have big names like Radhakishan Damani backing it. We have SoftBank backing it. And the company plans to raise funds through, of course, a mix of fresh issue as well as OFS. So, for investors out there, Lenskart, is that an IPO that you would advise them to participate in?
See, if you see from a valuation angle, it's quite expensive. But then looking at the sort of marquee investors who are coming in, I think that's what has created the demand for this IPO, despite being a decently large IPO. And at the same time, most of it is off for sale and not much is going to the company. The way I see it is, yes, I think the demand should be decent. And we should see at least some bump up on listing. But post that, I'm not too sure as to one would make a decent gain, at least in the short to medium term. But possibly listing gains would be there.
Okay. And any indirect sort of impact that investors in Titan, because of Titan's eye care, should be cognizant of, wary of with the Lenskart IPO? Is it likely to sort of indirectly bump up the valuation of Titan as well?
Yes, because normally there is a comparison, and people would say that Titan has extremely decent business in that vertical, and once you compare valuations, Titan could look a bit cheaper.
Okay.
So this can bump up Titan to a certain extent.
All right, sir. Let's move on now to another brand that, a lot of Indians have been familiar with, especially of my generation, studs, helmets. I mean, we've seen them on roadsides, we've seen them in stores, and nobody really gave it a second thought because studs had become so integral to the motorcycle riders in India. Now, this India's leading helmet maker, its IPO opens on October 30th, closes on November 3rd. Now, despite being a fairly well-known two-wheeler accessory brand, the issue has seen no grey market activities so far. There are hints that it could be a muted pre-listing sentiment for investors. Are you reading the tea leaves in a similar fashion, Mr. Baliga?
Absolutely, because just because there's a huge IPO interest, I mean, so, like someone like Studs could come out with an IPO and that to raise, amounts closer to about 450 crores. It's impossible, possibly 3-4 years back. This size of an IPO, I would have expected that they would leave something on the table for the investors, which unfortunately they have not.
Okay.
So compared to the other IPOs, I think Studs may not receive that greater response.
All right. What about Safecure Services? That's a security facility management firm. Again, IPO opens, but this is for the SME IPO on October 29th, closes 2 days later on October 31st, priced at about 100 rupees or so per share. And a small issue, Mr. Baliga, 31 crore rupee issue. Again, not much movement in the grey market. Any view on this particular IPO?
Well, in fact, I don't have a view on this IPO. It's a very small IPO. That too, like rightly said, it's a SME IPO.
Yeah.
And overall, as far as SME IPOs are concerned, I would say that one should be extremely careful because the way these IPOs have been coming, and quite a few of them also have been listing at discounts.
Yes.
One needs to be very, very careful unless you understand the business very well.
Right.
I mean, I won't suggest people to go out and invest blindly just based on the grey market premium, because the grey market premium, as far as the SME IPOs are concerned, can always be manipulated. So one needs to be careful.
All right. But of course, we've also seen some excellent listing day gains on SME IPOs. In fact, I remember a story from last year where a motorcycle dealer outlet had listed and that had made headlines. But let's move on now to maybe a slightly better known brand, at least for urban India, because there's a consumer goods player by the name of Orkla India, known for its popular food and home brands. And that is launching a fairly large 1,667 crore rupee IPO on October 29th. And its price band is also fairly expensive at about 700 to 730 rupees per share, and that is drawing some attention already. A 15% grey market premium. Mr. Baliga, is this something which is on your radar?
For a listing bump up, yes, I think there'll be a small listing bump up of I think about 12 to 15% for Orkla. Yes, I think the brands are excellent. I mean, you have MTR, you have Eastern. So, from a longer term perspective, possibly yes, but then I would like to buy it on post listing, in case I see a decent correction post listing. That's the time I would possibly look to buy. But for IPO investors, I would say that those who get an allotment look to exit possibly within a day or two when you get that 12 to 15% sort of a bump up on listing.
All right, and there are two more IPOs. Let's go to the fifth one, which is Game Changers TexFab, a textile manufacturing. Again, a small IPO, SME board, about 55 crore rupees worth, opening October 28th, closing October 30th. And again, absolutely flat, no momentum as far as the buzz goes for this IPO. Again, a small IPO. Would you give a similar strategy as you gave to the previous one, the safe, secure one, Mr. Baliga?
Yeah, like I said, I don't really track the SME IPOs too much.
Right.
And the same disclaimer.
Right.
And caution.
Same disclaimer and same caution. But another SME IPO, and final words on that, Mr. Baliga, before we let you go, because this is the logistics player company, Goyal Logistics. I just want to understand the sector a little bit, because we've seen unicorns emerge in the logistics space. We've seen the entire sector kick off with the advent of e-commerce, now overtaken, of course, by quick commerce, where logistics is not as much of an organized play as it was in the case of e-commerce. But in the case of, let's say, another logistics company, Goyal Logistics, how do you see the logistics sector growing? Again, a small IPO, just a little under 30 crore rupees, 27th October, which was yesterday, until tomorrow, October 29th. Again, not too much, just a modest 3% grey market premium right now.
No, because when you talk of logistics, as a sector, logistics sector should do extremely well, looking at the growth which is happening in e-commerce and overall, as far as consumption is concerned. But when you look at the SME IPOs, I think as far as logistics is concerned, there are dime a dozen. So we don't know as to which are the ones which will actually move beyond being an SME. So I think that's going to be difficult to pick and choose.
Right.
So I would suggest that go with the best players in the sector. And as of now, I would say delivery is the best play as far as logistics is concerned.
All right, of course. So a great sector, but the same sort of cautious approach is the word coming in from Mr. Amrish Baliga. Mr. Baliga, thank you so much for your time. It was always a pleasure having you and great input for all those who are looking at participating in the IPO season. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Baliga. And with that, we will slip into another very short break. But coming up on the other side, we'll get into a very extensive discussion on this trust deficit within Tata Trust. The battle is on and the vote is to be cast today. What is going to be the future of Mehli Mistry and what are going to be his legal options? Let's try and get you a view on that on the other side of the break.
Light, camera, and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News 9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News 9's pick of the week. Don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News 9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
That goat is long dead. But Cyrus Bhai are still alive. Game cho. This is God's office calling. You're not a VIP, so God won't speak directly. But here's the deal. You have been granted a second chance with a brand new news show.
Thank you very much. Just one thing. You said two more lives. So I'll first be a newsman who wins awards, and second I'll be
cockroach.
Better make this show last. No hurry to, be a cockroach. Let's stay here for a little while. Don't want to be a cockroach. Apparently, they have lots of issues, like being stamped upon. Which is the same thing as a newsman. I mean, they're not that different.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. Now, there's a trust deficit in Tata Trust, the very core of India's most admired homegrown business empire, the Tata Group. Now, at the center of it is Mehli Mistry, once a confidant, now at the center of the confrontation. Now, Mistry's term ends today, 28th of October, and the regular renewal has turned into what seems to be a power struggle as his reappointment seems unlikely unless all trustees unanimously vote in favor of him. But Mistry is fighting back. He has also reportedly set conditions that if Venu Srinivasan has got a lifetime term at Tata Trust, so should he. Now remember, Tata Trust controls as much as 2/3 of Tata Sons, and the trust decides who sits on the board of the mothership, the $350 billion Tata Group. Now, Noel Tata reportedly wants Mistry out. Now, this seems to be a dark reminder of the late Ratan Tata's boardroom and eventual courtroom battle with another Mistry, the late Cyrus Mistry. Now, the vote is to be cast today, and Mehli Mistry's fate hinges on potentially Noel Tata's trust in him. And if he is made to stay out, what are his options? Let's discuss that with Dr. Srinath Sridharan, policy researcher and corporate advisor, joining us this morning. We also have Sriram Subramaniam, the founder and chief researcher at InGovern. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time on this very important and the story which is going to develop today. Srinath, let me begin by asking you, this is more than just a trustee renewal issue, isn't it? It is about who controls the board of the mothership, the Tata Group itself.
Karthik, good morning. I think it's far greater trust about Tata Trust itself. I think as the governance norms are evolving, changing, power struggles always have happened. I mean, the human history shows that power struggles happen with almost every transition. And I'm calling it a transition because in the large, I think the footsteps of, let's say, JRD Tata and Ratan Tata, you don't have large leader who has stepped into that shoe. So in that sense, if you're looking at the, let's say, if I can loosely call it as the Parsi, let's say the trust deficit playing it out, it is also for the spirit of what Tata Trust stands for. It is not just about the legal aspect of it.
Right.
And you also have the other one where there are clamor for ensuring that Tata Sons gets listed.
That's right.
Let's not forget that it is also a regulatory breach as far as it's concerned. I mean, to a outsider like me, there was a deadline that RBI had given, and they could have applied for an exemption, which they did. But the deadline is over, so which means that they've breached the regulation, which is very unlike of Tata's. It has never breached anything in the past. But for some, let's say here and there, whispers of controversies that they've been part of, including, let's say, the Radia tape and so on and so forth.
Right.
But coming back to this, I think it's a large trust deficit, and I don't think the let's say the threat of Mr. Mistry saying that in case he's not voted in, his vote for Mr. Venu Srinivasan has been conditionally given by him. I don't know whether the law would actually allow him that leeway, because when you vote, it's yes or no. You can't say yes or no subject to whatever happens within the next 10 days if I'm elected. And I think that's a legal interpretation. It will be interesting to see.
Absolutely. So I think one thing is pretty sure, that in case the vote is not cast in his favor today, then this boardroom drama is going to expand into a courtroom drama. And of course, we will be following that courtroom drama as well if it were to unfold. But Mr. Subramaniam, any fracture in Tata Trust, is it also likely to cast a shadow on the other Tata Group companies by way of governance? Is there instability that today's vote could lead to in other group companies, as well as then, therefore, shareholder value?
Good morning. I don't think it will directly have impact on the operating companies, which are the 26 listed entities, as of now at least. But definitely the workings of Tata Sons could get impacted, because Tata Trust has a veto power on the board of Tata Sons. Two is any appointments, etc., have to be done with the consent of Tata Trust. So from all these perspectives, if there is disruption at the Tata Trust, that could disrupt key decisions at
Tata Sons.
Sons.
Right.
So especially if it probably not on a day-to-day basis, the running will not be affected, but strategic decisions and any investment decisions and the like could get affected.
So if I understand you correctly, Mr. Subramaniam, you're saying that Tata Trust, any rocking of the board at Tata Trust could potentially rock the boat eventually at Tata Sons, may or may not eventually rock the boat of other listed companies, because Tata Sons is not listed, which is something that Srinath also just pointed out too. And as far as operations of independently listed Tata companies go, investors, shareholders have nothing to worry about. Is that right, sir?
Yes, you are right. I mean, shareholders of operating companies should not be worried at this juncture. Obviously, one needs to see how this pans out. If it goes to courts, if it gets very ugly, and all those could then impact key decisions, and could sort of then take away investor confidence in the group itself.
All right. So, Srinath, let me bring you back. You were, in fact, just a few minutes ago talking about whether or not it is legally okay for Mehli Mistry to call for similar conditions as those for Venu Srinivasan's contract. But technically speaking, is Mehli Mistry wrong in calling for the same conditions? Because if one trustee, Venu Srinivasan, gets a lifetime term, why not Mr. Mistry himself?
See, Karthik, from the spirit of what he's saying, he could be very right. But unless the constitution of the trust allows such a vote, such a conditional vote, and more importantly, a qualitative condition, it is not a quantitative condition. It's like saying that I vote for you, but unless you vote for me tomorrow, my vote which I gave yesterday would be null and void. I mean, that doesn't happen at all, unless the constitution already of the trust already allows for it. And so, which is why from the spirit of the law, you vote yes or no, or you abstain. That's about it. There's nothing else available. So it will also be very interesting. I mean, just as a slightly divergent view, I think in a battle like this, and I'm using the word battle because it forms camps. And the reality is even operating companies would be affected very strategically, not necessarily from the valuation or any business perspective, but simply because how do you know that a certain independent director or a group of independent directors today sitting on operating companies to whose loyalty do they owe their role to? And I'm using the word owe their role because whatever we speak about independence of independence director, and it's a conversation I think Sriram and I have shared enough and had discussed enough on that.
Yeah.
Reality is we will see camps if this plays out for a longer time, which is exactly what we saw a few years ago in the previous battle. And this is no different, whether it is the trust of the sons. This is also the first time where the central government had actually called some of the key stakeholders to share its concerns. It has not happened in the past.
Absolutely. You're right. In fact, I want to take that argument a little forward, Srinath, and let me bring in Mr. Subramaniam here, because what Srinath is also alluding to is this formation of camps and formation of favoritism and potentially, biases that could creep in. So in that context, over the long term, Mr. Subramaniam, do you see a conflict of interest and transparency deficit? Because eventually, if it is the family and the friends of the family who decide how boards of independently listed group companies are formed, then there are likely to be biases and personal interests that could eventually creep in. You're saying there is nothing for shareholders to worry right now. Eventually, does it become a concern for shareholders?
No, that's what one has to see. Firstly, whether Mehli Mistry reappointment today pans out or doesn't. If it doesn't happen, then what is the next course? Because then definitely the battle lines within the Tata Trust Board would be drawn, I would think, especially if he doesn't take it lightly and if he views it very negatively.
Right.
And it's not also clear his supporters, which are other three board members, which is Pramit Zaveri, Zahangir, Darius Kambata, etc., whether they will change their stance or whether they will go with him and then they'll dig in their heels. So obviously then the subsequent impact is on Tata Sons itself, whether how Chandrasekaran is able to manage these stakeholders. As of now, it seems that he has been able to tide a very balanced act and able to sort of take it through. One has to see how that pans out.
Right. So how will that pan out, Srinath? What next for Mistry? Because like Mr. Subramaniam is saying, the vote will be cast today, and let's say the vote is not cast in his favor. Are we 100% sure of seeing a repeat of the courtroom drama with one Tata versus one Mistry unfold once again?
Yeah, I don't think it will be a mystery anymore, Karthik. I mean, in the past, we have seen that play out. But more interestingly for me, there is a large strategic angle to remember. If you use the word independence for a boardroom, the reality is you can never have unanimous consensus. I mean, the days of tall leaders like J.R.D. Tata and Ratan Tata, they could actually, let's say, build consensus. And today, boardroom would have such differences. So ideologically, how is Tata Group going to nurture its board? Say, if every board were to have only consensus, how will they actually do business? Because the independence of independence director is actually having the ability to differ or disagree. And that, I think, that the spirit of governance or the moral uprightness that Tatas have always demonstrated, I think they will come back to the same spirit. So I think if it doesn't go Mr. Mistry's way today, I think he has only two options: either take it to a court of law or just let it die down. And I think the only person who might know will be him.
And final word from you, Mr. Subramaniam. Fundamentally, do you think there is actually need now for all the stakeholders in Tata Trust to reconvene, to look at Tata Sons, to eventually push for the listing of Tata Sons, which RBI has been pushing for in any case? And overall, just uncomplicate this structure where there's a trust which holds a large majority in the Sons and the Sons that hold a large majority in the listed companies. Is there a need to simplify this entire corporate structure?
I mean, from an external observer perspective, I would think so, especially given the fact that SP Group, which is a large shareholder, unfortunately has got caught in this because they have acted as a VCP fund, and when they need the cash and they are really crying for liquidity,
they are unable to exit.
To get the liquidity. So from that perspective, yes, the Tata Sons needs to be listed, but I don't think any of the members of the trust or even the board of Tata Sons wants it to be listed.
Right, of course, they don't want to be listed. They want to keep the family jewels within the family, but we will leave it at that for now. Srinath and Mr. Subramaniam, thank you so much for your time. As always, pleasure having you here on News 9. And moving on now to some other global stories that we have on the show today. Now, Tesla chair Robin Denholm has warned shareholders that CEO Elon Musk could walk away from the company if his proposed $1 trillion pay package is not approved. In a letter to investors, Denholm said Musk's leadership is critical to Tesla's next phase as the company bets big on artificial intelligence as well as the autonomous self-driving technology. Take a look.
Elon Musk could leave Tesla as CEO if his proposed $1 trillion pay package isn't approved. That was the word Monday from the chairman of Tesla's board of directors, Robin Denholm. The appeal comes ahead of the automaker's annual meeting in early November. Denholm said in a letter the proposed plan was performance-based and that it aimed to motivate Musk to continue leading Tesla for at least another 7.5 years. She said Musk's leadership was critical to Tesla's success. Denholm added Musk's role was vital as Tesla looks to become a global leader in AI and autonomous driving technology. The proposed package would grant Musk 12 tranches of stock options tied to ambitious targets. It includes a market capitalization of $8.5 trillion and milestones in autonomous driving and robotics. Denholm's letter portrays the package as necessary to align Musk's incentives with shareholder value and long-term growth. Tesla's board has faced repeated criticism for not acting in shareholders' best interests. It's also been under scrutiny for years over its close relationship with Musk. A Delaware court struck down his 2018 pay deal earlier this year. It found it was improperly awarded and negotiated by directors who were not fully independent.
And on to another story from corporate America. Another one of the Magnificent Seven. The American e-commerce giant Amazon is set to lay off up to 30,000 corporate employees starting today in what could be the biggest round of job cuts since 2022. Now, sources say the move targets management-heavy decisions and comes as CEO Andy Jassy pushes to streamline operations after the pandemic-era overhiring. The cuts amount to about 10% of Amazon's corporate workforce, part of a broader cost-cutting drive across big tech. Meanwhile, American chipmaker Qualcomm has announced 2 new artificial intelligence chips for data centers, a major step in the effort to expand beyond the slowing smartphone market. The chips set for release next year helped lift Qualcomm shares by 11% on Monday as the company positions itself to compete with Nvidia as well as AMD in powering the next generation of AI computing. More details in this report.
Shares of Qualcomm finished 11% higher and hit a 52-week high Monday after the chip maker unveiled 2 new artificial intelligence chips for data centers. The move helps it diversify beyond a stagnant smartphone market as it gears up to compete against Nvidia's AI data center dominance. One of the new chips will be available next year and the other in 2027. Qualcomm said the new chips support common AI frameworks and tools and played up cost savings for enterprises. Though competition against Nvidia has been heating up, the high costs of switching chip providers and superior performance of Nvidia processors has made it difficult for new entrants to gain traction. Qualcomm is the world's largest supplier of modem chips that enable smartphones to connect to wireless data networks, which make up a majority of its sales. It has been diversifying its business to reduce dependence on the smartphone market, after losing Huawei as a major customer, and after Apple, which has also been a big customer, began developing chips in-house.
And finally, Meta and TikTok have said that they will comply with Australia's new under-16 social media ban, as even both companies warn the rule could be difficult to enforce. Now, starting December 10th, platforms including Facebook, Instagram and TikTok will be required to remove Australian users under 16 years of age from their respective platforms, one of the toughest social media laws in the world as of today. Now, the move comes amid growing global scrutiny over social media's impact on children's mental health. And if you are over 16 years of age, then do visit the News 9 social media handles and do like and subscribe. With that, we come to an end of this edition of Morning Brief at 9. Thank you so much for watching. But news continues right here on News 9.
That goat is long dead. But you are still alive. Game cho. This is God's office calling. You're not a VIP, so God won't speak directly. But here's the deal. You have been granted a second chance with a brand new news show.
Thank you very much. Just one thing. You said 2 lives, 2 more lives. So I'll first be a newsman who wins awards, and second I'll be
Cockroach.